our community, our hometown. This is Kearney Live on 102.7 FM, our hometown radio station. Kearney Live is presented by Kearney Trust, 310 West 92 Highway in Kearney, 816-628-6666. And now here's the hosts of Kearney Live, Mike Davis and Jim Dickerson.
Yep, that's that live studio audience. I love the sound of that. And you are watching or listening to Kearney Live, the most popular show in the world right now, for this very moment. That's right. I can make that claim. I can tell you this. Right, Brian?
That's right.
Yep. Yeah, I think, yeah.
That's right.
That's your mic. Turn your mic on.
Way to go.
Slide. Hey,
Good start. Nicely done.
Watch it, Jim. I will turn yours off.
And he has the power to do that.
That's right.
That's our producer engineer, Brian Watts. And the general, right? And the general manager, that's a golf clap. It sounds like you hit a short putt. Nice job.
No, that was good. That's okay. Those are my true fans.
People who really love you.
That's right.
I know it. By the way, you just had an anniversary, Brian. You married how long?
Yep, 25 years.
That's amazing. Yep. Do you realize there are likely people listening to this show who aren't even that old?
Is that right? Wow, that's amazing.
And to my right, and I am happy to announce that Jim Dickerson is here, is in studio. That's right. Sorry, ladies, he's taken. Yeah, so just control yourselves.
They're probably sitting there thinking, there's not a lot of reason I'd want to control myself over that.
Or they would say, I don't know who would actually want that
That's
guy.
what I'm saying. They're like, okay.
Or maybe who is that guy?
Well, as you well know, I'm kind of a big
deal. Are you? I've heard that.
Yeah, well, I thought you were going to hit.
I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
No truer words have ever been spoken.
It would be a matter of one's personal perspective, I'm sure. And in studio today, you're probably wondering if we're just going to do this nonsense for the next hour or so. And no is the answer to that. But we have in studio, we have Christina Blanton, and she, wow. I like that. Nice response there, too, Christina.
Okay.
It shows that you're relaxed. That was funny.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me here.
You're welcome. And you're with Connected Families Counseling, which is a new business here in Kearney.
It is. It's right on the same block as Selinsky, so you can't go wrong with that.
How do you stay away from the donut store when it's right, 2 doors down?
Right. I have to use all my coping skills for that one.
Oh,
it's so good.
No doubt about that.
I just want to make sure I'm clear here. You're saying that I could go to Slavinsky's and just slide next door and I'd be
right. You get your donut, you get your counseling all in one day. It's
now
good. Right.
The problem is you said you get your donut.
Oh.
Anybody knows me knows
right.
that I'm in there.
That's all right.
They usually close right after I leave. We don't have anything left.
Right.
A couple of years ago, it seems, somebody actually brought us a box of donuts.
Yeah, well,
remember that time?
It was just a few weeks ago, actually.
All right. It just seemed like it's been a long time.
It was Megan Thompson brought us some.
Yeah, Megan.
It seems like it was like in, 2012.
Time flies, I guess.
I know.
I heard this, you've probably heard this, but they say long days, short years, as it applies to your life. I heard that the other day, and I thought, man, that is the truth.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so Christina, Jim, do you have anything going on? First of all, Christina, we'll get back to you.
I really don't. We got notice that it says here for the seventh week in a row we've beaten CNN, so we did that.
This is what I told you about his dishonesty. It's pathological.
It's not dishonest. That's true. It says right there, 7 weeks in a row. We're going to be tomorrow night at the help me, Brian.
The Chamber Harvest Gala.
That's the Chamber Harvest Gala. Now, before I get in trouble, which is not uncommon, is that open to the public?
No, it's chamber members only.
Okay. Well, I was sorry, Stacy.
It's members only.
I was going to try and help out, pump up some sales if you needed it, but clearly that would be wrong. These are why I ask these things.
Get these chamber members to come to the gala.
Yeah,
come on, chamber members.
If you're a chamber member and you don't have your ticket yet, get a hold of Stacy, And we'll be over there at the gala, and that is at the
Tobacco Barn Farm. Yeah, great night for it, too. It looks
Yeah.
like it's going to be. Yeah.
And here's my favorite part. There's food.
Hello. That's true. A Taste of Kearney,
Yeah.
I believe is
That's
the...
what it was called.
Yeah.
They had me at a taste of. Of course, I was there. And then Friday is Bulldog football. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And we have a little surprise for you on Friday night, but I'm not going to say what it is.
Yeah, I think we
I'm
already...
not gonna say what it
we
is.
talked about it last week.
Yeah, but I'm not going to say what it is. But we do have the Coach Gray Show tomorrow at noon. If you want to join Mike and I, we'll be in here with the coach. And we'll be talking about that 35-0 victory over
A whooping.
the Ruskin Eagles, which is, as we all know, is my alma mater. So I was a little torn, but I'll get over it because I'm shallow and self-centered. And with that, we'll go back to the one and only Mike Davis.
Thank you, Jim. There are times he has moments of truthfulness, doesn't he? I know, it's funny. Good to have you here, buddy. All right, Christina, let's, first of all, I guess this is Suicide Awareness Month.
That's right.
And that's a national awareness campaign. I'm not sure where it started, but I know we deal with it, periodically deal with it. I mean, we talk about it here on the air. I think we've done it the last 3 years, maybe more. And Clay County, I forget the name of, Tri-County Mental Health Center has been on the air with us before. But you're a private counseling group. Explain to our listeners. You and I talked off the air because I wasn't quite clear on the sort of the nature of your business beyond the name, which is Connected Families Counseling. Tell us how you got started doing this.
Right. I got started with counseling because a long time ago there's working in mental health field with my bachelor's degree. There wasn't a ton that I could do. I felt like I needed to do more in meeting with one-on-one. So fast forward a lot of years, I went to get my master's in counseling so that way I can meet with people one-on-one. So I work with children, teens, and women. I love working with teens. They're a lot of fun. I love the sarcasm. I love the attitude. A lot of people hate it, but it's something that fills me with joy. I don't know. But I really enjoy. So I'm a provisionally licensed professional counselor in Kearney. And so I love the community. I love this area, and I love getting to be a resource for people around here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, you have to ask yourself, you don't just start out with a patient or client base.
Right.
You somehow, some way, you said, you know what, we think this is a good idea. Let's start a business, hang a shingle.
Right.
How did you what was the thinking process in that?
Right. Well, we got started in April, so the pandemic's been going on for a year. Everybody is struggling. If you look around, you see the news. Yeah, we don't seem okay here in the United States. We're not okay. There's a huge mental health issue going on, and there's a need for counselors. A lot of clients that I had mild anxiety that was manageable on a day-to-day basis, but then the pandemic hit, and it just threw everything out of whack.
So, did the pandemic play a role in your decision to start the business?
It did not. It was just the timing of it all. It just happened to make sense.
Okay. Right. But you were obviously dealing with some patients then before you opened your door.
No.
Is that right? No. I mean, you started with a blank slate.
I did.
That is amazing.
I did.
Yeah.
Right. And I love it here.
Right. And how's business going?
It's going good. I do have a couple of daytime appointments available if anybody's in need of counseling.
Right.
I'm here. But other than that, it's going really well.
Now, we talked about how, first of all, I'm more interested in, I want to hear about how you got this business up and running, but that's not why we're here.
Right.
People come to you how? Explain to me how you make a connection or a patient makes a connection with you.
Right. A lot of times people just do a Google search and then they find Connected Families Counseling. A lot of people, a lot of my clients like me in particular, because I do have a Christian background and they like that they have somebody that they can relate to and identify with. Not that I'm going to push or manipulate somebody into Christianity. That's not something that I want to do. But they like that I have that
I think it's the value system.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So they find me, they call me, they talk to me, and then as I'm talking to them on the phone, I'm finding out kind of what's going on, and I'm seeing if I'm going to be a good fit. Because I don't want to counsel somebody. I don't want to waste your time and money. That's not what I'm about. And as a parent, as somebody who's looking for care, you want somebody who's going to be able to meet your needs. And if I feel like, yeah, this is not my specialty, then I'm going to say, hey, let's find somebody else.
Okay, so let's say, for example, I mean, we've got clearly, look, every county in this nation has there are people who are depressed, who are having a rough go of it, who need counseling.
Right.
It's ongoing. It's probably never going to change in this life. But I think you've obviously filled a void for, if not right here in Kearney, but definitely in Clay County. Now, what happens when, in other words, what calls do you get? Do you get a call as a referral, or does the patient actually call you first?
Both.
Okay.
Right. So sometimes I have other mental health counselors who are looking for referrals. Other times, usually it's just the parents themselves that are looking for care for their kid.
How about when you talked about teens? Are there people from the school district that might contact you?
Sometimes they have before.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So so it could be from any number of places that people end up on your sofa.
Right.
Does you have a sofa?
I do have a sofa.
Nice.
It's nice and comfortable.
Do you let people lay down on it?
If they want to lay down, they can lay down.
We don't have one of those in here, Brian.
We need to look at the budget.
Right.
Can we take a nap? Or?
If that's what you need, you can take a nap.
It's your hour, Jim.
Right.
Sign me up, Brian.
I know, and that's really what I need, about an hour's nap. You know.
Yeah, that would be nice. So, as you talk about, during the coronavirus and all that, more and more people. One of the things, and I think we talked about this on shows in the past. It seems that, and the coronavirus just made it 10 times worse. It seems like there's more and more and more people that have some sort of mental challenges, or however you want to phrase it.
Right.
So the question becomes, is it really becoming a bigger problem, or is that we recognize it more, or, what's going on, and then how do we stop it?
Right. I think with the coronavirus, it threw everybody off, where everybody's sense of safety was just gone. So I think also we're just becoming aware, like, hey, we've got issues. Counseling, it's not for those who are crazy. We like to think, oh, I'm too good. I don't need counseling. I'm okay. And we only like to seek help whenever things are really falling apart. But if we look at it, counseling is for everybody. People who need you can already identify in your mind, oh, that person needs counseling. But there's a lot of times people who go to counseling for people in their life who don't go to counseling, and learning how to handle those relationships. So I think we are in an era of mental health awareness and reducing the stigma. And the coronavirus, it really threw people off. And so people are seeking help now more than ever, which is a good thing.
Right. Without being obviously specific, what are some of the cases that you see?
Right. I see a lot of cases of abuse, whether that's physical abuse, sexual abuse. I also have clients who are dealing with medical traumas, so it could be themselves or a relative. There's so many medical issues. It just has a ripple effect throughout your whole family if one person is struggling with that. I also have people who are working on their relationships and wanting to set those boundaries. They're wanting to learn positive communication, or just being aware of their thought patterns that they've had since they were even a child, and learning how to challenge that and look at things from a different perspective.
When you say relationships, are you saying marriages or cohabitating people or that sort of thing? Or?
Any relationship, parent-child relationship, spousal relationship, relationships with your coworkers, because, you guys are all here together, but relationships with your coworkers, it can be tough, Oh,
tell us about it. Right, Brian?
You have no
this
idea.
Guy, right? That guy right there.
So how much would you say, and this might be a long question or a long answer, how much would you say social media has made a difference? Because you get into this thing where some people, their social media account makes them look like their life is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Mm-hmm. And if you're thinking things aren't going well and you're looking at that, how do you explain to people, okay, they're probably, one, overdoing it, You know?
we know those people, don't
yeah,
we? We see them on Facebook every day.
I don't.
You know them.
Don't get me started.
I know.
Yeah, but they put stuff out. There's some people. What do we call them? The oversharers. Is that the term now? Where they, it's like every day they put out something about how great their life is, and then I start to wonder. Are you
is
trying
it
to
really?
Well, are you trying to convince me, or are you trying to convince yourself? Is
Right.
what I always wonder.
Good
But
question. Yes.
How does that affect somebody who's already a little bit, like my life's a shambles, and then you look at that stuff?
Right. I mean, social media can be detrimental, and we like to blame teenagers and say teenagers they're just on their phone all the time. If you look at the adults, we're no better. And so what you have is people are on their phones building connections with this facade of people. They're looking at these people who are portraying this image that's not reality. And so we're stuck in a world where things are not real and we're seeing just the highlights. And that can be so hard whenever you yourself are struggling. So as we're on our phones all the time, we're not building connections. We're not talking face to face. This is not something just for teens. These are adults. These are parents who are spending more time on their phones than they are on their kids because it's easier. It distracts us from what's really going on. And we're not focusing on the problems. We're just going to ignore it and get on Facebook for a little bit or Instagram or Snapchat. We're just going to ignore the problem, pretend it's not there when it's still there.
No doubt about it. And such a terrific observation because I can remember, even myself, the first time I started using my phone when there was you'd be sitting in a waiting room, for example, even if you're, having your tires rotated and an oil change, and you go to your phone because there's this uncomfortable silence in the room amongst the folks who are sitting in there because we can't even strike up a conversation with somebody who's sitting 3 feet from us, or 6 feet as the case may be.
Right.
But it's serious, though, because all of a sudden it becomes this crutch. And this, for me, or anybody who had an iPhone even almost 10 years ago, right? And you're doing this thing then inside your own home with your own family.
Mm-hmm. Right. And for that, we have the name Connected Families to build those connections and repair that. One of the primary questions that I ask parents in the initial session that I do before meeting with their kids is asking, what do you guys do as a family together? How do you guys connect to each other? And a lot of them don't. So building those connections and getting them back to, yes, this is something I need to do, because they know that that's what they need to do. But just having that reminder of, yes, I need to be spending that time. And relationships are tough. Even as a parent, whenever your teenagers acting up, it can be tough to want to engage them whenever you're getting that attitude, you're getting the eye rolls, you're getting all of that. It can be tough to continue engaging those kids, but finding that time to connect with your family.
Christina Blanton is with us today. She's with Connected Families Counseling, and you're listening to Kearney Live. And please do not go away. We'll be right back with some more interesting stuff about National Suicide Awareness Month? Brian says yes. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Always remember to thank the underwriters for their support of KPGZ.
Simplify your banking, simplify your life. It's easy with Kearney Trust Company. The world has become fast-paced, and we understand that you are busy. That's why we offer a banking experience that's as simple and stress-free as can be. Kearney Trust goes beyond convenient locations and good customer care to offer banking services that make managing your finances quicker and easier than ever before. Online, bill pay, e-statements, and mobile banking are available to give you a positive banking experience so you can get back to your life and activities. Kearney Trust also provides capital to people and businesses so they can achieve their goals. Whether you know exactly what you want or just need someone to talk to about your dream, you can speak with them and work on that dream. You may just be getting off the ground or ready to move into your brick and mortar building. Kearney Trust will provide you and your business with the resources you need to succeed. Kearney Trust Company is your partner for success with 2 convenient locations in Kearney at 310 West 92 Highway and 701 Watson Drive in Price Chopper. The phone is 816-628-6666. Kearney Trust Company. Banking you can trust. Member FDIC.
Welcome back to Kearney Live. Christina Blanton is with us today. She's with Connected Families Counseling in Kearney, Missouri, right down by Slavinsky's. You know what I'm talking about. Donuts, baby, donuts, yeah.
If anybody is wondering, I love the old-fashioned. Looks like a little gear, glazed.
Chocolate.
Don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be. I'm an old guy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be fancy, just an old-fashioned, glazed.
Our radio
2 or 3 of
station,
them,
I think
maybe.
what he's trying to say, we accept donuts as currency. Or for we can be.
No.
Brian says no. Yeah, okay, that's not true.
Can you
but,
imagine?
But we can be bribed.
On
so.
payday, and we're like, here, Brian, here's your donut.
Here's your donut. Yeah, your check was a little late. This donut might not be as warm and munchy as
When you go to make your house payment, hand them
man, I know.
here's a Long John.
Now we know where that phrase "dollars to donuts" came
Yeah.
from. I know. So isn't that funny? So, Christina, so here we are back again, and we were just talking about the iPhone thing and the sort of, the crutch that it becomes.
Right.
And I know there are families out there who actually have game night where you put your phones away, or phones are just not accepted at the dinner table, period,
Right.
under any circumstances. And I think it does require, and I don't want to dwell on it, but I think it takes some your own personal attitude needs to be adjusted somewhat
Right.
to recognize that crutch and what it does to your family and the time that you have together.
Absolutely. And it's tough because even if I'm dependent on my phone, of course my kid's going to be dependent on their phone too. And
Yeah.
setting that example and saying, okay, whenever you set your phone aside too, you kind of become aware of all the things going on around you, which includes anxiety and the struggles. But having that family game night, having that time where you set aside, letting your kids know ahead of time, hey, this is phone down time, finish what you need to do on your phone. So that way they're prepared for it and more okay with it.
So you can counsel me right now.
I can. I'm already charging you.
You're on the clock,
I'll send you a bill.
Okay, I'm going to pay you in donuts, so
All
I'm
right.
not really too worried about it. Where did we get into this thing where is on our phones, especially,
Right.
we feel like we need to respond right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think one of the biggest things when you're out at dinner or whatever, people are so afraid that they're going to miss something.
Right.
How did that get started? Because we feel like if we don't respond right this second, the world's going to fall apart. And the funny thing is, the things we're responding about have nothing to do with any who
dumb
cares?
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it all started, but as soon as you just even seeing that phone on the table, it's that message of I'm waiting for something else to come along and interrupt our time. It can put you as the second best person. And if you're on a date night, I would encourage you to keep your phone away.
That would be a good
Right,
idea.
might
for
be a good
starters.
idea,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Could you imagine on a first date? Hey, I've always. Hang on
Yeah.
just a second. I gotta
Yeah, I need to take this.
look at that.
Text.
Right.
Well, it reminds me back in the day though when we had wall phones and it rang and everybody went running to the phone line. And now who would do that? Imagine that. It's like a lot of times I just don't want to answer the phone, and that's the convenience of
But the
these.
funny thing is, it's absolutely the opposite when people come to your front door.
Yes.
Because remember when people would come to your
Right.
front door like 20 years ago, and you're like, oh, who's at the door? And now
It's like,
everybody's like, turn the lights out.
Right.
I know.
You're like, who is that?
Right. It's usually a salesman, so I.
Well,
there's that.
yeah, probably somebody from a radio
But I guess
station.
Kids used to come to the front door and do all that. I guess they don't need to now because they text and say, hey, let's meet wherever, down the street or whatever.
Right.
So the use of but it is true. Nobody goes to anyone's front door, and if you do, unannounced,
Right.
the word shotgun.
Hey
comes to
now,
mind.
right? Or a large German Shepherd, which I own. She's really nice, but she's got a very scary, menacing bark, which is awesome.
I have
All right.
corgis, and it doesn't do a whole lot of good.
I know it. Christina, we talked about you mentioned the word anxiety, and I know before we got on the air here, you talked about panic attacks, which
Right.
I think it's an interesting concept. How does that play out? I mean, it feels like because it has a very it's a very physical sort of response to stress. And tell us about that a little bit. I find that fascinating.
Right. And a lot of people who aren't aware of mental health will see a panic attack and be like, oh, just suck it up. You'll be fine.
Yeah,
It's okay. Just take a deep breath. Like, we've been doing this forever. Like, you'll be fine. But whenever reality, your heart is racing, you can't calm yourself down, you're really struggling, you might start to cry. It is a big deal for these people who struggle with it. It's a huge deal.
Right. With such, I guess, overwhelming
Right.
physical symptoms. That's the part
Right.
that I find sort of fascinating, that you look at that and people might think they're having a heart attack in a lot of cases.
And it
The
does.
heart rate goes up, yeah.
It mimics a heart attack oftentimes. And so your mental and emotional health, it can play into your physical health and well-being. And that's your body telling you, you need to do something about what's going on because you have avoided this for so long.
Making the connection to whatever is causing the stress.
Right.
At what point do you, how can you recognize that the stress that's coming in people's lives, in your patients' lives, is not, if it's caused by, I guess, things that they're doing in their lives or just things that aren't going on the way they'd like them to be in relationships or whatever, versus, I guess, a medical sort of problem that's going on, a miswiring of neurons in their brain or something. How do you start determining those differences?
Right. And I always recommend prior to counseling, talking to your doctor and seeing what's going on, because you're right, it could be just physical issues. Most people that I see are very aware of the struggles and the issues underlying the anxiety.
Yeah, I think the stress tends to build on itself if you don't do something about it.
Right.
And I think that's where I would imagine people give you a call because they're thinking, I feel like I'm just I'm spiraling down here.
Right.
And I don't know how to get out of this now. Explain a little bit about how that happens.
Right. And I think we like to think of counseling as just something for people, for those who are they're really doing something crazy. They really have those issues over there. I'm okay. I'm fine. I can deal with it. I can handle it on my own. I'm all right. When in reality, that's just stuffing all the emotions down. And those emotions are still there. And then it comes out like a volcano. And that's where we get those panic attacks and anxiety attacks. And so counseling is for everyone. Everyone should go to counseling. I'm of the belief that everyone should go to counseling at some point of their life to learn what's going on and how they approach things. And really, counseling, you're just getting an objective person that's walking alongside you through your journey. And they don't have to see me throughout the week. And so that's kind of nice for my clients, is that I'm not in their lives, but they can tell me the stuff going on.
I just like to get Mike out of my life.
Right.
Not for the next 40 minutes or so.
How do you, you talked about when you deal with kids. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that's kind of interesting with kids is that because your life experiences are limited, because you just haven't lived that long, when something happens to you, it's like detrimental, the end of the world, and the funny thing is, when you get to be our age, you look back on it, and things that you thought were the end, it was horrible, now you barely remember. Right. Or you don't remember at all. Or the one thing I can remember is girlfriends. If you had a problem back then, it was like the end all, it was over. Right. Now I don't even remember who half those people are. But how do you talk to kids and when they have no frame of reference of what's to come? Right. I think it's just, I like to listen to them where they are at and
giving them that support, because even if we look in our own lives now, we can see moments of struggle, whether it's aging parents or rebellious teens or whatever. You can look at those times and you're so in the moment, you can't see out of it oftentimes. And so for these teenagers, they don't have all that life experience to know, hey, there might be some hope at the end of this. And so just listening to them and being with them in their story and understanding, one of the biggest things is identifying those feelings, because even just saying, wow, that sounds really hard, it just validates them, and it can do so much by just identifying what they have going on, that it's a real struggle, because a lot of times like, oh, you'll be fine. They're not fine right now. They're not. And acknowledging their pain can really go so far. It really means a lot to them to do that.
Well, and I think the same thing happens with adults, and although I'm not a big meme person, there's one that's out there. I think it says, how much time do you spend worrying about something that never happened?
Right.
And but there's a lot of truth to that, because people are worried today about something that a week from now they don't even remember what they were worried about, but today and you're wasting time, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, my dad always said, worry is wasted energy.
Yeah, you're wasting. So today's lost because I spent all day worrying about Brian. I had to think of something off the top of my head. That's the best I could do. How sad is that?
I wish the camera was on Brian's face right now when you said that.
Brian, I think about you often, just so you know.
Well, let's talk later on, and we'll work our differences.
Christina Blanton is with us today, Connected Families Counseling. It's ConnectedCounselingKC.com. ConnectedCounselingKC.com is your website. Mm-hmm. You also have a Facebook page, Connected Families Counseling. And if people needed to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
Right. Just go to the website, give me a call. You can send me an email. I've got a form on there you can fill out. It's super easy, and then I'll give you a call back within a couple days.
Very good. I don't want to overlook the fact that this is Suicide Awareness Month, and we have had similar programs like this here on Kearney Live each year during Suicide Awareness Month. It's a tough thing to talk about.
It is,
and particularly if folks have had to deal with it at some point in their life. Where do you start? I mean, and how do you even know that somebody's ready to make a decision like taking their own life?
Right. A lot of times we know people are really struggling. We know that, hey, like they've got a lot going on. They're sad, and so we're going to start noticing if they're withdrawing from everyone. They might be using substances more or stockpiling guns. And I know we live in the Midwest, and so I'm not saying not to have a gun, but I'm saying, pay attention if somebody's all of a sudden wanting to buy one and they've never had an interest in it before. They might be collecting pills. Those are just kind of some things to look out for.
Yeah, so I mean, in other words, just because somebody wants to go out and buy a gun, maybe they want it for personal protection, whatever. But if you see these other earmarks,
right? If it's accompanied with the sadness,
yes, or I notice here on your sheet here, hopelessness is one thing. You think about that. Somebody who believes, and I personally find that the most tragic part about suicide is that I just can't imagine how hopeless that individual must have felt.
They're in a very lonely state.
Yes, at that moment, that they would have never seen beyond that moment, to just think that, like Jim mentioned a minute ago, I mean, listen, we forget what we did. I can't even remember what I had for breakfast. But, I mean, and that somewhere down the road, you're going to have a wonderful day. There's going to be some celebration or something that's going on in your life that is going to be a wonderful thing that you're going to be so glad that you stuck around for. Right. And you just want to be able to share that. How frustrating is it as a counselor to not be able to just sort of impart what seems like the logical response to somebody with such hopelessness?
Right. And it is hard whenever you're meeting with kids and teens, and I'm just like, wow, like you have so much to offer this world, but where they're at, they can't allow themselves to see it. They can't allow themselves just because of what they have going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit with them in their pain and just let them know that, hey, I'm here for you. It's tough, but I'm going to be walking right alongside you, and that helps relieve some of that isolation that they feel.
I mean, do people actually tell? It's a silly question, perhaps, but I'm not a counselor. But do people say, literally, I feel like I might want to take my own life? Do you hear those words?
They do. And so that's whenever, so if somebody's sad, if somebody's struggling, I do a suicide assessment to see where they're at. And so this is something that you can do with the people in your life who you're thinking like, hey, I think they might be suicidal. Right. Is just having that conversation and just like, hey, have you ever thought about this as an option? Mm-hmm. And by saying that, you're not going to give them the idea of suicide. They're not going to be like, oh, suicide, now I'm going to do it. I never thought of that before. They've thought about it. Mm-hmm. And so just asking, have they thought about it? How often have you thought about it? Have you planned out how you might do this? When do you want to do it? Yeah. And just having that conversation. And so assessing for suicide, that's something that I do frequently, just to see where people are at and making sure they're okay. And if you do have that conversation with somebody and they're in a really dark place and they're planning to do it, you can call 911. You can take that person to the emergency room, get them access to services.
Right. There are suicide hotlines.
Right.
I mean, I couldn't tell you what it is right now, but I think you just gave a pretty good piece of advice that 911, you could call 911 and at least they would connect you with somebody.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And it's easy to remember. So
no doubt about that. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Let's see. It was one. No, that's right. Yeah. Well, all right. It is tragic. No doubt about it. At what point do you feel like you need to bring in someone else, or do you ever refer someone on when it gets really dark in some patients' cases? Right.
And sometimes people do need to go to a residential place where they have full-time care. And so that's something that I might do, or intensive outpatient where they're there throughout the day. That's always an option for people.
Yep. All right. Christina Blanton is with us. She is with Connected Families Counseling, and we are here this month talking about Suicide Awareness Month, which this is National Suicide Awareness Month, and we're talking about some other things, plus your cool little business over there on 92 Highway, right? Next to the donut store, Connected Families Counseling. Stay with us. We'll be right back. You're listening to Kearney Live.
A special thank you going out to underwriters like these for their support of KPGZ.
Simplify your banking, simplify your life. It's easy with Kearney Trust Company. The world has become fast-paced, and we understand that you are busy. That's why we offer a banking experience that's as simple and stress-free as can be. Kearney Trust goes beyond convenient locations and good customer care to offer banking services that make managing your finances quicker and easier than ever before. Online, bill pay, e-statements, and mobile banking are available to give you a positive banking experience so you can get back to your life and activities. Kearney Trust also provides capital to people and businesses so they can achieve their goals. Whether you know exactly what you want or just need someone to talk to about your dream, you can speak with them and work on that dream. You may just be getting off the ground or ready to move into your brick and mortar building. Kearney Trust will provide you and your business with the resources you need to succeed. Kearney Trust Company is your partner for success with 2 convenient locations in Kearney at 310 West 92 Highway and 701 Watson Drive in Price Chopper. The phone is 816-628-6666. Kearney Trust Company. Banking you can trust. Member FDIC.
And welcome back to Kearney Live. You are listening to the most popular radio program in Kearney, bar none, and that I know for a fact. We're talking today with Christina Blanton, and she's with Connected Families Counseling here in Kearney, Missouri. And it is National Suicide Awareness Month, and you are you've had to deal with patients where this was an option.
Right.
Yes.
It is for a lot of clients. This is something that I'm constantly assessing. Do you have any suicidal ideation? Where are you at with this?
Right. And I think one of the things that we talked about just briefly off the air is there's a stigma about feeling weak, perhaps, at your maybe toughest emotional moment, by which you don't ask for help.
Right.
I mean, there's something about saying, I don't know. I don't really want to tell somebody that I had this horrible dark thought, or a notion to actually think I'm going to take my own life. Talk to me a little bit about that, and then I want to talk a little bit about the demographic of suicides, because you've got an interesting note about that here.
Right.
So let's go there first.
Right. So we don't want to burden people with our problems. A lot of times people like to listen and to other people's problems, help them out, but no, I'm okay. I can take care of it on my own. But really, it's hard to talk to people about the things that we got going on. It's hard to share those dark things. A lot of times people will say, I've never told anybody this. They'll tell me that, and just things that they've been keeping inside for years, that they've been dealing with on their own, and it's tough. And so for me, those people who make the call to my office, who call and say, hey, I'm needing counseling, those people are so courageous. There's a lot of times parents or people will just cry on the phone because of how hard that decision is to just make that call to get the counseling and the help they need. So there's a lot of courage that goes into getting help, and it's hard to say that we need help.
I didn't notice on your website, is there a way on your website where someone could contact you through the website? Because I know in today's environment, a lot of people, for whatever reason, don't want to use the phone.
Right. ConnectedCounselingKC.com.
And it does have a schedule now button on there, and you can click that, and it'll take you to a simple form that you can fill out, and then I'll give you a call or email. You can put a note, and if you want to email instead, I can do that.
Yeah, there's a contact link.
Yes.
Under the About link, and so it's a drop-down link. It says Contact Us, and it says here too. You've got children, teens, women, and it says Christian, and you talked about that before. You've got you represent Christian values within your practice.
Yes. Yeah.
And which is I think an interesting thing too. In fact, let's just talk about that for a minute.
Right.
About how that entered into the organization of this business.
Right. So for me, I am a Christian. I believe strongly in God. I believe strongly in the power of prayer, and it gives so much hope. And even the research has shown that just faith alone can do so much for your mental and emotional health. So it's something that I check. So if I'm meeting with kids, I do check with the parents, hey, are you okay? Should spiritual issues come up if we talk about this? And most everyone has been okay with that, but I do let them know up front, so that way they don't learn later on, oh, she's a Christian, because some people don't want those Christian values. That's their beliefs, and I can respect them even if I don't agree with it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Right.
Okay, so I want to get back to this this demographic of suicide. That you have here. Let's talk about that.
Okay. So a lot of people think suicide as just a teenage issue, that it's just something, they're hormonal teens, they're struggling, they broke up with their girlfriend, things are hard, that's why they did it. But really, suicide does not discriminate. It doesn't discriminate against age, race, gender, socioeconomic status. I mean, we saw Robin Williams. He seemed to have it all. And he committed suicide. And so I think on one of the pages, I forget the statistic, it is, I think 80% of suicides are from men and women between the ages of 45 to 54.
Right. That's the one I'm looking at. It just fairly jumped off the page. And, man, I mean, and this is where you think you would really be on the, I mean, your life is rolling along, man. I mean, this is not exactly the way, that never happens. Not exactly the way you planned it, but going pretty darn good, you'd think.
Right, and you would think. And so we like to take the focus off of ourselves. And so especially for this demographic that's listening,
Right.
talk to the people in your life who seem to be struggling. Invite them over, check in and say, hey, you doing okay? I've noticed that you haven't posted anything on Facebook for a while, or I've noticed you've only been posting sad things lately. Are you okay? Let's talk about it.
So warning signs here, and I'm looking at these, obviously the top one here, talking about or wanting to die or kill themselves, looking for a way to kill themselves, or searching online. We talked about buying a gun, talking about feeling hopeless, feeling trapped, or being a burden to others, and an increasing use of alcohol or drugs, and so forth. And it goes on and on for so many of these things. I mean, as you look at individually these bullet points, and there's, a dozen or so, they don't seem so outwardly problematic. I mean, to me,
Right. And in and of themselves, a lot of these, you could say, oh, yeah, like I have some of these things, which we have to look at it accompanied with the sadness. So if you think somebody might be struggling even just a little bit, talk to them, have a hard conversation. And these conversations, they're not easy. They're not fun. It's dark. But just have those conversations, talk to your loved ones.
Right. Do you ever do like a full family counseling where you have a family in there, or more than one person at a time?
I have before, but currently I don't have openings for family sessions.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Yeah. That's a different dynamic, I would imagine.
It is. It's balancing a lot of different personalities all in the same room. So it's a lot.
Wow.
Kind of like this.
I know. I was just looking around at these two jokers in here. I mean, we might need to come over there for yeah, but you wouldn't have all three of us at once.
Right.
You got that here.
That would probably be a bad thing.
I think that's above my pay grade.
Yeah,
I think that, yeah.
You don't have any breakable items in the office, do you? Brian loses control from time to time. Although
that's not on the list. Though
there is a donut shop right next door, so we got that going for us.
Right.
But going back to, we talked a little bit off the air about the social media aspect, and how much of an impact, or do you see it very much where a lot of people go out on social media and they're looking for a support, for lack of better words. They post something and their expectation is people are going to say, wow, that's great, you're the greatest, blah, 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 and they get the reverse.
Right.
So what's the negative impact you see from that?
Right. Well, I mean, we go and post on social media because we want those likes. We want those people to be like, oh, what's wrong? But we're talking to a bunch of people, and Facebook is it's not meant for deep conversations. Not really. There are some groups where you can have that, but we're avoiding talking to the people in our lives that do care. But we're broadcasting it to everyone, and we're not going to get the vulnerable responses that we want. So I don't encourage deep sharing on social media just because there is a heavy chance that it's not going to be accepted or received, because the other person on the other end, they might be insecure and they might not want to help. They might not want to give that right answer. And so it's easy to give a sarcastic response than to be vulnerable.
What are some... Go ahead, Jim.
Well, I was going to say, you also... Context, it happens in text, it happens in emails. The context of the way you say something and the way it reads are oftentimes different.
Right. There is so much that's lost in translation with text. Emojis, I think those can help in conversations. And so
maybe.
Maybe. Right. But there is so much that's lost in translation with text messages, and it can lead to a lot of arguments and disagreements.
Yeah. There are no nonverbal cues.
Right.
There's no. I mean, even you can always tell. I mean, even just the crack of a smile with sarcasm is totally different than a sarcastic post online.
Right.
Right.
It's hard to tell the difference sometimes.
Yes.
I'm like, I don't know if you're being serious or not. I don't know if I should be concerned.
Yeah, and you kind of wonder, if you have some of us have those friends, where they kind of insult you and they say, "No, I'm just kidding." Or where were you? Where are you now?
Why do you put the camera on me? What are you saying, Brian?
Truth of the matter is, Jim is not who I was thinking of. But that's indeed. I mean, as a preventative, is there a sort of a general way? And I know I'm going to have you counseling everybody here in Kearney, Missouri for the moment, but Where do you start? I mean, we're talking about primarily people breaking off relationships and their inability to relate to or communicate with folks in their family or others who are important to them in their lives. Where do we start fixing that?
Right. And I think counseling is a great option, just to have an objective person who's not in your daily life, because your friends and family, they're not objective. They just aren't. But you have your counselor walking alongside with you, and they're challenging some of your long-held beliefs, and gently. And so it's always that kind of, I'm always gauging, is this something where I can challenge you at, or do you need me to give you some space with it? And so I'm always gauging my clients and how they're perceiving things. But through that long relationship, we get to know each other, or I get to know them pretty well, and I get to identify some of these beliefs that they have, and I can challenge their perception. Is this really the way you think it is, or maybe there's another perspective? And then usually a lot of my clients are like, oh, I never thought about that.
How do you know when you're finished with a patient? How do you know when you've reached, or is there a sort of a pinnacle and a objective point at which you say, hey, we're done here?
Right. And it's usually a mutual thing where I talk to them and say, hey, I think you're achieving the goals that you set out to achieve. Is there anything else that you want to work on in therapy? And they might say, I feel like I'm done. I feel like I've done the work. I feel like I'm good. And clients, they might be done for a while and then come back, and that's okay.
Right.
Because stuff happens. This is life.
Sure.
It's hard. It's hard, all the things that we have to deal with.
It's hard being me. It is.
It is.
I tell my wife that every day.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, no doubt about it. It's Connected Families Counseling, KC.com. That's the website. And services offered, it says right here, children, teens, women, and Christian. How much time we have left? Just a little bit. I want to talk about you talked about sort of post-traumatic cases, and I'm thinking with women, some abuse cases and things of that nature. Talk a little bit about that.
Right. So mostly it's children that I see with this history, which makes it even sadder. But they're processing their experiences through play. So adults, we talk about our problems. Children cannot. They don't have that ability. So what I'm doing is my room is set up. It's not set up for just a playroom for kids to just play. This is set up to where they can act out these experiences that they've had and gain some control over that experience where they had no control.
Wow, well done and well said. Yeah, I can't imagine, and I would imagine it takes a special individual to be able to sort of pull that information out of children who really may not even understand what these feelings are.
Right, and most of them don't, and it is really tough and challenging. But whenever you see those kids processing what they've been through, and moving on past that, where it's not something that they have to carry with them into adulthood.
For 25 years, exactly.
Right. It's amazing to be a part of that experience, and I love the opportunity for it.
No doubt. How young have you? What's the youngest patient you've seen?
3.
Oh, good heavens!
Right.
Oh, that just breaks your heart, doesn't it?
It did.
Yeah.
It did. It was very tough. But just seeing that child throughout their healing process and getting to be with them, it was just amazing to see their healing journey.
Right. And real quickly, how do you stay sane in a business like this?
Right. And so for me, I have my own therapist, and my therapist has her own therapist who has their own therapist. There's a saying, if your therapist...
It's a pyramid scheme. I see it. I see how this works.
It is. But she helps me process the cases that I have and just the heavy emotions, so that way I don't take it home to my family. And so that way I can stay and be the counselor that I need to be for my clients.
Are you tempted to talk about a case at home or cases, and does it ever happen?
No, because, I have my supervisor that I talk with the cases about.
I see.
I have my therapist who I just unload the heavy stuff and move on, so no.
Yeah. Wow. Christina Blanton, terrific. And thanks so much for, what you do. And I keep wanting to say celebrate, but that's really not what it is. We're talking about, good Lord, if anything, it's Connected Families Counseling at right here in Kearney, Missouri.
Right in Kearney.
And we've been talking about suicide awareness. And folks, if there's any of you out there who've been listening to this program and you need to talk to somebody, get on ConnectedFamiliesCounselingKC.com and connect. Do you want to give your phone number?
Yeah,
Okay,
it is
yeah.
816-635-0275.
Okay, and that's Christina Blanton. And, folks, do not be afraid to reach out if you need help. Brian, what do you got on that piece of paper right there? Next week, my goodness, Sergeant David White and new recruits from the Missouri National Guard. I saw that text message yesterday, so this is really cool. So we're going to have some.
You mean those texts really mean something?
I know.
Maybe I need to read those.
I love that people are calling in and wanting to be on this very program, and we did have you. Thank you so much,
Thanks
Christina.
for having me. I appreciate
yes,
it.
Yes. All right. Come back, would you?
I would love to. I love that opportunity.
All right. Sounds great. And all of you come back. Thank you so much for being a part of Kearney Live. We'll see you next week.